As that my computer sharing, resume share, has disappeared. Let's start. Hope we can see. Okay. Hopefully this works. Sorry for the interruptive beginning. But we are starting a new series, as we mentioned. We're starting off with our first lesson of the series called Book Smart. You could call it whatever name you like. This is the idea. How did I write it in this morning's message to you? The people of the book get to know the book. Something like that, right? So that's what we're aiming for. And we're getting to know the books. I'm going to start all the way from the beginning, from the very first book. And we're going to explore Jewish history and all the teachings. As I mentioned, we'll take a journey through every era of Jewish history. Now, that will probably take a long time to actually do. So that's why we're just going to start 3,334 and a half years ago, when God gave us the Torah at Mount Sinai. That's what we'll start with, and we'll move across. But let's actually get, you know what I want to do, to really discuss what we want to discuss. Okay, so what we hope to accomplish, that will look, let me start like with just a list of words. Okay, what do you know about, what is the word Torah? Okay, Torah we said, let's choose a different word. What does the word medrash mean to you? Is the medrash only stories? So yes, there are stories. What else? Commentary. Good. What else? So you get the point. There's a lot of ideas within it. Now, if I tell you the word Talmud, what would you think the word Talmud entails? That's the Mishnah. And the Gemara, oh, you're saying both together. Very good. Yes, the Talmud is the combination of Mishnah and Gemara together. The Mishnah, we're going to get to these things. That's the point we're doing this for. Is so when we talk about Mishnah, and when we talk about Talmud, and when we talk about Medrash, and Kabbalah, and Halacha, and Musar, and Chassidus, and yada, 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 so many other aspects of Jewish literature, you know what we're talking about. And each of these terms themselves represents a whole body of Jewish learning. They have hundreds, probably even thousands of different authors throughout our history, okay? And composed over many centuries and in different parts of the world, as you may have seen on the screen that I tried to do before. Now, this we haven't practiced. Are we able to zoom in here? Doesn't give us the option now to zoom in, so we'll leave it alone. But when you could zoom in, you could look at the bottom bar here, and that's taking you through all the different eras of history, which I put on the screen earlier, zoomed in. Remember? So when you look at that, you're starting from the beginning of history to this day, on all these different genres of teachings. Now, obviously, it's impossible for us to go in depth into all of these and to learn about them, or I should say to learn them. But to learn about them, that's our plan here. To just learn a little bit about the primary personalities of each of these works and what field, what, for lack of a better word, genre, what's a better word for that? What area, what aspects of each one is, or what expertise. And we'll explore the nature, the characteristics of each of these areas of learning, and when they were developed, and how they were developed, and what their purpose, what they aim to achieve. So you'll get a better understanding without getting into the details per se. But when you read in a book, or you hear a sermon, or you're learning with your favorite rebbitzin or rabbi or anyone, oh, that's the Mishnah, that's the Medrash. And like I said, we're not just going to learn about them. We'll also hopefully try to experience some of them. And I did send stuff to print today, actually just the map. Today's printing was just the map, but then I realized it's 7 pages, 7 times 35, or whatever number, it's going to get a little bit much. I will rather try to do 1-page items that I'll print from time to time, so you can look at the texts inside as well. And when you look at those texts inside, like we said, you can look at some Kabbalah or Gemara or any of these aspects. Now I just remembered something else I wanted to put in the slides for you that I forgot to do. What can we do? So when you look at each of these areas, that will have a better understanding of what these different areas of Jewish learning are. And hopefully as well, by the time we finish this course, however long it takes us, you will have a taste and a feel of what each one teaches, right? What did you say? Yeah, it contains. Okay, so we're taking this bird's eye view of the nature, the purpose, and the history even of, and whatever else you want to add, because again, as comprehensive as I might get, I could oftentimes miss things, and you might have questions, and I might not have the answer, and in those cases, we'll do what we usually do. Okay, we'll get back to it. Okay, or if we'll try, or you'll remind me. And hopefully with that hands-on experience of the style and the learning, you'll feel that it's you've grown and you have a better understanding of Jewish literature. So, on this map that we have on the screen right now, okay, call this the timeline map. It represents, it gives us an outline of the various areas of Torah that we intend to cover. Okay, and the color coding shows us different areas and aspects of the Torah learning. And then the bottom, that bar at the bottom, is the timeline. It takes you all the way from Matan Torah, giving you the Torah at Mount Sinai, all the way till today. Because Torah is never ending. Torah is still being developed, and not developed as in Torah itself, which we're going to talk about. There's the canonized books of the Torah, but then the commentary, the understanding. How do we apply it to modern times? That is going to this very day. And how do you navigate, how do you apply this ancient wisdom to modern times? Like I mentioned, there's a Tomet Institute in Israel, which does that with halacha. But what about hashkafa? What about the perspective, the philosophy, the outlook? How do you apply that? So we'll look at that as well. All right, so ready? Let's put on our Jewish thinking caps, okay? The Yiddish cup we have here, okay? Switch on your Jewish mind and let's begin our journey. And we'll begin with the most basic question that I want to ask you, and that is, what is the Torah, okay? What is the Torah? That's the first question I'm asking as we begin this journey. Torah's instructions, okay? What else do we say Torah is? Learning, okay? Direction, let's go. Where's Harold? Harold said that Torah is the scroll in the ark. What else? A blueprint for life. Good. Now, the Torah, obviously, is starting with the basics, apart from that scroll that's kept here in the ark, and that's true, okay? But what is written inside? What is in the scroll? What's written in there? Handwritten, we know, by a sofer, by a scribe. It takes a whole year to write it. It's a long time. It costs a lot of money. You have to pay for that scribe's salary. And, the scribe has to be able to live. And if you want nicer cloth, parchment, or if you want a prettier mantle cover, etc., etc. Right, so that's one part. Absolutely. Now we call it also, there's a few names for it, the Chumash. What does Chumash mean? 5 books of Moses. In English, they like to call it the Pentateuch. Is that correct? It's Greek, sorry. Thank you. See? And every week we read the Parsha of the week, right? Well, that is the annual cycle of the reading of the Torah, which is all coming out of the scroll. Now, the Torah scroll obviously is our most holy, sacred object in Judaism. And the text that it contains is Judaism's most fundamental and foundational text. That's the Torah. Absolutely. Now, not with, yeah.
I would like you to explain because of other questions. We have this Taurus code. How does it get damaged? And what does it should do about it when you people are asking?
Okay, I'll give you a few examples of how Torah could get damaged. And gentlemen, when you get an aliyah at the Torah, or ladies, for any reason you are, I find in my shul, I have to tell people, and remind people sometimes, when you're getting an aliyah, don't scrape with the mantle or your finger, or the person who's reading and takes the yad and like points too hard. I've seen personally somebody poke a hole into the Torah with a yad, yeah, by mistake. But somebody was pointing at the Torah and pointed a little bit too hard with that metal yad. Maybe that's why in Chabad we don't use a yad. But I've seen in a shul, now it was with a Sephardic Torah, because the Ashkenaz Torah, the content of the Torah is the same. Whether you're reading Ashkenaz Sephardic, it's the same word of God. The difference is, and I like better about the Sephardic, you see the pros and cons of each. Sephardim tended to maybe be wealthier or more affluent throughout history. So they house their Torahs in this beautiful, magnificent silver or gold box. And it is magnificent. But that's where, and it's easier to read from, by the way, because it stands up straight. So it's easier as a Balkore to read vertically than to read down like the Torah is a book. So with Ashkenaz Torah, you tend to read down. Many bimas, I see this bima was smartly done. My shul one, we didn't think about it. So my shul bima is very low. What's good about that is that kids can come, but it's a very long distance from the Balkara who's standing up here to look all the way down there. You know what I'm saying? So the scroll, the scroll is the same. The difference is that the Sephardic Torah is standing upright vertically. Ashkenaz Torah tends to be flat because you have Atzechaim, the rollers. The Sephardic one's easier to navigate, but more vulnerable to a hole being punched through it, as I've seen firsthand. So you can kiss with your tzitzit when you get an aliyah, but if you scrape with it, you're going to scrape those letters out, and that will invalidate the Torah. So I have to keep reminding people, not about scraping, just touch gently the beginning and end word of your aliyah, kiss it, and like that, you've done your part. Some people think they have to kiss the scroll itself, and when they wind up kissing it, they could smudge the letters. So these are some of the ways that I could think of how a Torah could get damaged. There might be other ways. Now, it's also possible that when the Torah scroll was written, maybe the scribe was in a hurry, maybe, I don't know the reason, accidentally could have left out a letter because it's handwritten, not printed. Printed or photocopied is going to be exactly the same as you want it to be. But today we're at an advantage than ever before in history, maybe in the last 10, 20 years it exists, where a Torah scroll, remember it's multiple parchments, although it cannot be written by computer, it has to be handwritten, it can be checked by a computer. So it's very rare today that a Torah scroll will be written with any mistakes, because a scribe will use a computer to actually check your Torah scroll, your tefillin, even mezuzahs. I will tell you that my bar mitzvah, which was in 1995, I had a pair of, the tefillin. My grandmother bought me my tefillin. It was her custom to buy tefillin for all her grandchildren. And she bought me my tefillin from a reputable scribe in the community. Now, here's something interesting to know. The naivety of a child. I was a very shy kid, believe it or not. I was very shy. And it took me so much to muster the courage, to go over to the scribe and get my tefillin checked. And the custom is, some people get the tefillin checked every year in the month of Elul before Rosh Hashanah. But halacha says twice in 7 years. So I didn't do it every year. It's expensive to get your tefillin checked. I think back then it was $25 a year. Today, locally, it's probably 750 rand. In the States, it's probably $100, or I don't know. I can't tell you the exact price. But I went to the same scribe who gave me my tefillin, had it checked. It was always good. It was always kosher. One day I'm in Israel, 10 years after my bar mitzvah or more, and in my uncle's building is a wonderful scribe. His name was Rabbi Toib. Rabbi Toib was using modern computer technology, and he was charging less than the scribes in New York. In New York was already $50 then. And in Israel, I paid $35 and including a computer check. And when I came home that evening, Rabbi Toib says to me, check your tefillin. Check. I gave it to you to check. You're the scribe. He says, now I want you to look. Okay, open the tefillin, look, and I can't find any. He says, your tefillin aren't kosher. I want you to look again. I looked and I couldn't find it until he pointed it out to me. In the second paragraph of the Shema, V'haya im Shema, it will be, when you listen, you hearken the words of God. It says the word, Ukeshartem oisam la'ois, you should bind them as a sign. And the word osam was missing. Why couldn't I pick it up? Maybe because I was hurried and looking through it very quickly. But a complete word missing. Just at kshartem la'os ayetchem. You should bind it. Why? Because in the first paragraph of the Shema, ve'ahavta, let's read it. Let's say ve'ahavta quickly aloud. Ve'ahavta es Hashem elkecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol ma'adecha. V'hayu advarim ha'ela shneichem tzeh b'chayim ala b'vecha. V'shinanta b'vecha v'dibartam b'v'shita v'sech v'lech v'darecha v'shach v'mecha. Ukeshartam la'os ayadecha. In the first paragraph, just the words ukeshartam la'os ayadecha. You should bind them as a sign on your hands. But in the second paragraph, it says ukeshartam oisam la'os. You should bind them. So it's very easy to run through it and forget the word oisam, because in the first paragraph it doesn't say the word oisam, and in the second paragraph it does say the word oisam. And I looked through it 2, 3, 4 times and I couldn't pick it up. Now, obviously, as a scribe, or because he had a computer check it, he picked it up quickly. But what shocked me was, how many times did I give it to another scribe? And you never know if the scribe you're giving to, you would hope that what you're paying the scribe to do, he's actually doing. Now, he said you could forgive the scribe because maybe the scribe doesn't have a computer checking it, and maybe he checks a lot of things and doesn't realize it. That's why he told me what he does is he reads it line for line as he checks. Because as a scribe, he knows it all by heart, and it's very easy for him to forget. And he can't just rely on his mind. So he said, now you can forgive the scribe. I won't go through the details. The scribe gave me a little bit of a hard time. He said to me, he didn't write the tefillin. He says, I bought it from such and such scribe in Israel for you. So he sent me to that scribe's house in Jerusalem. Okay, no problem. I'm staying at my uncle's house. It's around the corner, luckily. I go to that scribe's house. That scribe's name was Rabbi Hennig. He takes my tefillin, looks at it without even reading what the mistake is. He goes, it's not my handwriting. Okay, so I call the other guy up. Okay, this is about 17 years ago. I call the other scribe back up in Israel, in New York. Remember now the time difference and all. And I'm mustering the courage. And I said, well, Rabbi Hennig says it's not his. He says, oh, if it's not Rabbi Hennig, maybe it's this other scribe. Sends me to another scribe. Now this one I had to take a bus to get to him, also in Jerusalem. This scribe says, no, it's not my handwriting. 2 days now without my tefillin, borrowing people's tefillin. I get back home. You know, those days you couldn't just make a cell phone call. Only 17 years ago, I couldn't just call somebody from my cell phone in Israel to New York. Maybe if you could, it was very expensive. But we didn't even have smartphones yet, as far as I recall. iPhone didn't exist, to tell you that much. iPhone only came out in 2007. This is 2005 or 4. So I call the scribe up again. I said, listen, Rabbi, it's not this other one. He goes, if it's not him, then it's a scribe in Sfat. He gives me that scribe's address. I call that phone number. I call that scribe. The scribe says, come to my house. He gives me his address. Now, you know, a bus drive from Jerusalem to Tzfas. I get there. The scribe is busy. He tells me come in the evening. I mean, I'm remembering this day like it was yesterday, but it's 17 or 18 years ago. Okay. It was 2005, if I recall correctly. So what, 17 and a half, 18 years ago. I get there. He says he's busy. Okay. I go to the pizza shop, get some lunch. He tells me come back in the evening. I go to the yeshiva. I walk around Tzfat. Okay. I'm supposed to be on vacation, holiday. I came for a wedding and I'm running around Israel. And eventually I get to the guy. He looks at it, goes, it's not my handwriting. Sorry to trouble you. Yeah. At least these guys recognize their hand. By now I'm furious. Okay. I've been running around Israel 3 days. Instead of enjoying the time I came to Israel, I called the guy up. I said, listen, enough is enough. You're sending me from pillar to post all over the country to figure this out. I'm done. You have to take care of replacing it. You're the one I bought it. My grandmother bought it from. You know, you've seen me over the years. I've come to check it with you. You should have picked up this mistake. Now I'm the one fixing your problem. He goes, okay. He says, you bring it back to New York. I'll fix it or replace it for you, which is what he did. Thank God. So I came back to New York and he replaced it for me. And that was that. So I said to him, imagine this. How many years now? It was 10 years since my bar mitzvah that I was not wearing kosher tefillin. You couldn't even own up and you're sending me all over the country. Okay, fine, you're right. And if I wasn't in Israel, what would you have done? No, fine. So he sorted it out for me. The point I'm making is, whether it's a Torah scroll, it's handwritten, or tefillin, it's handwritten, or a mezuzah, it's handwritten, and there could be mistakes. Most common mistakes are in mezuzahs, because when it comes to tefillin and a Torah scroll, you're going to make sure to get it from a reputable person, a scribe. But when you buy your mezuzahs, you could be buying them from the bookstore, and in Israel, they come a dime a dozen, or a shekel a dozen. And, you know, even here in Joburg, if you remember a few years ago, a wonderful person, Rabbi Herring, I'm friends with, he got caught up sadly, in this tragic episode of a scandal where he was buying mezuzahs from a scribe in Israel, not even knowing that he was getting, was it printed or was it, I don't think it was printed, but it wasn't a proper cloth. Yeah, it was terrible. He didn't know. And I don't know that Rabbi Herring, he can't write them all himself. He's buying it from somebody in Israel. Anyways, Rabbi Herring's name was cleared, thank God, by our Beis Din, but our Beis Din set up a commission then. And this commission, forget what they're called, Vad Mishmeret Stam. The Vad, the committee of people, it's comprised of rabbis and scribes in our community who need to verify every mezuzah, tefillin, and Torah scroll that is written, and they all inspect them in order to ensure that we don't have such a story again. I've gone to people's homes here to check the mezuzahs and discovered that it was a piece of paper. I discovered that it wasn't kosher. You have to check these things. Now let me tell you personally, I came home, remember we had that big storm a few weeks ago in December when it was hailing and raining. I come home and I see water in my mezuzah case. So obviously somehow or other there was a crack in my mezuzah that I wasn't aware of. My mezuzah that's on my outside door, and water seeped in that storm. I have the mezuzah in my house. I think it has to go to Shemus. I still have it. Put it in Shemus. But the point is, especially an outdoor mezuzah or tefillin that is more volatile, it's something versatile. You're moving it around. So it's more susceptible to the volatility of inclemental weather. You keep your tefillin in your car. The blazing heat of our African sun it's the same sun anywhere else in the world too, but here in Africa, it has a much stronger ray and impact, and your tefillin can get dried out from the sun and the letters could crack. Your mezuzah can be more susceptible to the heat of the sun because it's outdoors. So I find it particularly the outdoor mezuzahs. Or it could get very cold, in parts of the world where it gets very cold. The ice, the cold weather could cause letters to crack as well. So but any weather extreme can have an effect. So does that answer your question in a long, drawn out way of how a Torah scroll and tefillin or mezuzahs could become? Yeah, a Torah scroll too. In fact, not this Sunday, the next Sunday, there will be a siyum, a celebration at Torah Academy Hasidim Shul, where they're going, well, it's not only the Torah, this is what's interesting. They got a Torah that's 100 and something years old. According to the family that's dedicating the fix-up of this Torah, they tell me they think it's about 150 years old, this Torah, from, I forget which shul, Bloemfontein, or one of the shuls that closed down, and they've restored the Torah. And a lot of the letters in it were cracked because of age, that's all. Age does it. I was in Berlin 11 years ago, or 12 years ago, for a concert. We were singing the Johannesburg Jewish Male Choir. I told you about it, so I won't digress at that now. But we went to a shul that actually was destroyed by the Nazis, but they rebuilt it. And they found parts of Torah scrolls that were destroyed. Do you see in the news last week, in Poland, they were doing some archaeological digging, and they uncovered ancient artifacts, Jewish artifacts, menorahs and tefillin and things that were wrapped up by people. The date of those newspapers was 1939 in Poland. Now, just to think though, the content of that newspaper said how bad the Jews are, and we as a people will be exterminated and will be annihilated and will be eliminated. And thank God, we're still around. We survived by the well, a lot of our people sadly were eliminated. But thank God we're still around. Not only did we survive, thank God we thrive. Absolutely. So while it's difficult, we're still here. And that newspaper that was predicting the demise of our nation, I don't know if it's around. Anti-Semitism is still around. Probably one of the blessings. We look at South Africa. Yes, we have load shedding. Yes, we have problems. But we also, I don't think anti-Semitism, I'm not saying it doesn't exist here. No, it's not as overt and it's not as rampant as it is in other places. I just saw in Palm Beach, Florida, this week, on the AT&T building, they were projecting, the projector like this, anti-Semitic statements and things about Jews. It exists. It is there.
Last week, one of our members, minister.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I absolutely. Yeah. But I do say the advantage, you never know when load shedding will hit other countries and South Africa will be well developed. Our banking system here, I have bank account in the States and a bank account here. I can tell you that my South African bank account is a much more pleasant system to use than the American one. And simply probably because of necessity. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. Probably because, the banking system here, because of fraud and crime, wound up needing to be more advanced. So you have a better system here. Is it no good? No, that's what I'm saying. Our banking system, out of necessity, is better here. Yeah.
Second part of my question, the benefit of the people, is if your mezuzah or some parchment is damaged for some reason, what do they do?
Okay. So I would suggest for most people, bring it to a sofer, a scribe. We have quite a few great scribes in our community. Who did you suggest? Rabbi Levy. Which Rabbi Levy? Oh, the old man. Rabbi Avihu Levy. Yes. So he is a scribe. I will, off the bat of my head, tell you about 10 scribes that I know of. Well, Rochelle just mentioned Rabbi Avihu Levy. There's Rabbi Kozlowski, and there's his brother-in-law, I think it's Rabbi Kaufman. There's Rabbi Uzvok. There's Rabbi Klein. There is Rabbi Gary Brody. There's Rabbi Micha Kaplan. There is Rabbi Drutman, I think. Okay, that was 9 already there. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. Pardon? Yeah, but all these other people live right around here as well. The furthest one out is Rabbi Uzvok, but all these people I just mentioned also. Okay. What I suggest is if you need the number to a scribe, ask me, I'll give them to you, or you can easily Google them. And I'm sure there's more than those 9 who I just mentioned to you. Those are just coming up at the top of my head. Oh, Rabbi Herring, who we mentioned before. Yeah, that's 10. So is he? Is he not a scribe? Was he just a socher, a middleman? Okay, a merchant. So there are people who just sell. Rabbi Katz upstairs here, he sells mezuzahs and tefillin. He's not a scribe, but he could. And by the way, there's other people who are scribes that don't practice as such. Rabbi Masinter is a sofer, trained sofer, but he doesn't practice as such. He doesn't write. Rabbi Chazdan, my wife's uncle, he is a scribe. I'll tell you a cute story. My Rabbi Chazdan's wife, her name is Peggy, her maiden name is Slavin. She's a younger sister of my mother-in-law, who many of you met, Mrs. Brenya Schaefer. Now, my father-in-law, of blessed memory, one day receives a letter in the early 1980s or mid-1980s from Rabbi Chazdan. He said as follows: I started to write this letter to you, and it turned out into a whole long Megillah. And he actually sent him a real Megillah that he wrote for him. So I don't know how many Megillahs he's written, because I see he's actually asking for Megillah these days. But the point I'm making is there's many people who are trained as scribes. Some people, not as smicha, but maybe before studying smicha, learn. In Israel, it's common that many yeshivas teach the laws of safrut, because even if you're not going to be a scribe yourself, it's nice to study and practice calligraphy. And also you learn about what is a kosher Torah scroll, and how to identify what's not kosher about it. So to answer your question about what to do, if you have a parchment that is determined, first of all, don't decide on your own if you're not a qualified scribe. Rather bring it to the sofer. Let the sofer determine if it's kosher or not. Chances are, if it's not kosher, the sofer will keep it for you. Hello, welcome, good to see you. Please come join us, of course. And the sofer will then take that mezuzah, or tefillin, and if they determine that it's not kosher, let them keep it. They'll deal with it for you. But if you know yourself for sure that it's not kosher, maybe it's ripped, or like mine that has such bad water damage that I don't think it's reparable, then you can take it to West Park Cemetery, where there is a huge Sheamus grave, and you could put it in there, or you could give it to me and I'll put it in there for you. Okay. So I hope that answers both questions, and feel free to ask me any questions directly, or you could ask it to Miriam and we'll present it this year. In fact, that actually makes it easier sometimes if you do that, and I could address them. But you might be better off asking those questions. Somebody could give you a straightforward answer. You asked me these questions 25 minutes ago. Look how long it took to answer. 2 simple questions. The first question I could have just said to you, I think both of them the same answer. Let a scribe determine. Anyways, that's me. I answer questions in a long-winded way, but hopefully a little bit more thorough. And as we know, as we said, the Torah is obviously the most sacred, holy object in Judaism, and its text, which we said is most foundational and fundamental. Now, notwithstanding the importance of a Torah, what's contained in the Torah, or the Chumash, is just what it says, the 5 books of Moses, which is why the Greek name Pentateuch. What does Pentateuch mean? 5, okay? So quantity-wise, the Torah itself is not that vast. I should be careful with what I say vast. Thank you for nodding your head. Because, as the Mishnah says, hafach ba v'hafach ba v'chula ba. Delve into it and delve into it, because everything is in it. So yes, you could find science in Torah and maths in Torah. Just using those 2 as an example right there. Kiddush HaChodesh, which is coming up in the Torah portion in 2 weeks' time. How will you ever know how to sanctify the moon, how to calculate time, if you don't know some mathematics, some astronomy, right? Pardon? Yeah, today we get dumber and dumber because everything's done for us. I can't even make calculations in my mind as I did as a kid, because I used to go as a kid into a shop and they would say 20% off. I do a calculation in my mind. Okay, I knew the amount to pay. Today, I don't have time to make the, okay, 20% is an easy one. But other calculations, I pull out my calculator. And today, thank God, we have bond calculators and mortgage calculators and all those different types of things. How many words are there in the Torah scroll? Anyone? How many words in the Torah scroll?
There is a word for every Jew.
There's a word for every Jew. Anyone want to guess the numbers? So first guess is about 600,000. Any other guesses? How's it, Kelvin? Let me just do it after the class, okay? Unless you're urgent to go right now. Okay, you can do it. How many words in the Torah scroll? Oh, sorry, no problem. Millions, okay? Keep the guesses coming. How many words in the Torah scroll? You want the exact number? 79,976. It's under 80,000 words. It's about the length of a short novel, okay? No, that's how many, letters? I think it's 300 and something thousand. I'm not sure the exact number of letters, but now the Talmud records 2 opinions as to when Moshe transcribed the Torah. According to Rabbi Yochanan, Moshe transcribed the Torah as he received it from God. Okay? So he wrote, let me just find my notes here. He wrote the books of Bereshis and Shemos immediately when he came down from Mount Sinai, according to Rabbi Yochanan and the Gemara. And he continued to record the communications that he received from God, right? The books of Vayikra and Bamidbar, Leviticus and Numbers, over the next 40 years that they traveled in the desert. Okay? And the final book, Devarim, was written just before he passed away. He even records his own passing in the Torah. According to some opinions, according to others, the conclusion was written by Joshua. Okay? Now, according to Reish Lakish, who I told you about in the past, was a Baal Teshuvah, a returnee to Judaism, became a great scholar later on in his life, who was previously a gangster. So don't give up on anyone, never despair. Don't give up on yourself either. There are two tests for a person's success. Two tests of life. One is the test of failure, the other is the test of success. One is the test of poverty, the other the test of abundance, right? Of impoverishment and prosperity. And it's interesting, I read a commentary on last week's Parsha where Yosef HaTzadik, well, what does it say in the Parsha? It says, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. It lists all their names. And it says, Yosef Haya b'Mitzrayim, and Joseph was already in Egypt. So the commentators ask, we know Joseph's already there. If you've been following the Torah portions in the last few weeks, you know Joseph's already there. So Rashi comes to the rescue and says, it's the very same Joseph. What do you mean the very same Joseph? The same Joseph who was living with his father in the land of Israel till he was age 17 and was a faithful shepherd and was righteous and pious. The same Joseph who was sold by his brothers who wanted to kill him and wound up selling him as a slave and wind up in jail and going through all those struggles and challenges and difficulties. The same Joseph who interprets the dreams. Remember, he takes an interest in his fellow inmates and asks them, Kunjani Chana, how's it, right? He's curious, he's interested in the well-being of his fellow, excuse me, sorry. We still haven't explained what's here, so I have to go back. It's the same Joseph who becomes viceroy of Egypt and takes care of fixing the Egyptian economy, right? Saving the Egyptian and caring for his family after they reunited and reconcile what they did to him. So the Medrash says something interesting, that after Yaakov passed away, the brothers were nervous. They got concerned. Maybe Joseph was going to take revenge. He'll exact retribution. He'll retaliate for what his brothers did to him. The brothers were very worried. So the Medrash asks, why were the brothers so worried all of a sudden? Why do they think Joseph is going to take revenge now? He had respect for his father, not his father passed away. But the Medrash says something interesting. When they went to Israel to bury Yaakov Avinu in Hebron, in Ma'arat Machpelah, on the way back, remember the story happened in Shechem, in Nablus. So Yosef went to the very same place, the pit that his brothers threw him into. And he looked inside the pit. The brothers saw Yosef looking in the pit. They go, oh no. Now he was reminded of what we did to him. Now he's going to get nasty to us. Uh-oh. And Joseph said, no, that's not why I looked in the pit. I didn't want to remind myself of what you did to me. And yes, Yosef makes it very clear to them. You maybe intended to harm me, but Hashem sent me here lemichya. Lemichya means for preservation, for life, to sustain the economy of the world, of the whole Middle East, then from this whole famine. Sometimes in life, you look back at an incident, oh, this person intended to hurt me. But Hashem had a good reason ultimately. And oftentimes in life, I've done this a few times. Not always do I figure out why something bad happened. Sometimes it's terrible and I cannot figure out why did something bad happen to me. Other times I go, now it clicks, now it makes sense. Had such and such, the trajectory of my life, why it took this path and not a different path. Never know. And sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes you can't. But when you figure it out, like Joseph did, You tried to kill me. You threw me in the pit. You sold me as a slave. In hindsight, then it looked like terrible you've done to me. But now you could see how it all worked out well, right? It's because Yosef had that narrative. In psychology, there's a narrative therapy. You heard of narrative therapy? Narrative therapy says that if you change the narrative of the situations you face in life, you will see that it's all for a purpose and for a reason. Some people have the victim mentality, or you could look at Viktor Frankl's way of, no, and that's what Yosef did. Look through it, and it's different CBT, logotherapy, etc., etc. But the point is, Yosef was able to change the narrative. Say, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. It's interesting because in the Hebrew language, the very same word for crisis, mishbar, is the same word as birthing stool. Same word. By the way, in Chinese, I believe too, that the symbol for crisis is the same symbol as the word opportunity. What does that tell you? Absolutely, unlike in Hebrew, it's the opportunity, there's the birthing. So yes, even birth comes with labor, hard work. So certainly we can understand that it's never easy, but if we look for the opportunity, so we look at the crisis in this country now, there are people who are going to make a mint of selling solar energy, inverters, generators, right? Try to find the opportunity, the solution within the crisis. That's our job. That's our mission. That's what we need to do. Oh no, certainly you're right. Sadly, there are many people who take others for a ride. Yeah. According to Reish Lakish, back to, how did I digress? I don't know. But what Yosef was saying to his brothers was that I looked into that pit to remind myself, something I once faced. Look where I once was. And a person in life, when you're successful, do you become arrogant and pompous and snide? Don't give up. That's a test of life. But also when a person is in the lowest of positions of life. I mean, could it get worse than what Yosef had? He was orphaned. His mother passed away. His brothers hated him. They despised him. They wanted to kill him. They threw him into the pit, and he looks into the pit to remind himself. Oh, that's even worse. You want to know what the commentary on that is? The verse says, Habor reik, the pit was empty, ein bo mayim. It had no water. Rashi comes and says, of course, if it had no water, it was empty. Why did they have to say both? Why is the Torah seemingly redundant? It's superfluous to say to me, it had no water, it was empty. So Rashi tells us, mayim ein bo, it didn't have water. It did have snakes and scorpions. Remember that word? It's a message to all of us, regardless of your age and stage in life. If our mind, which is like the cistern, like that pit, if we keep it empty, particularly empty of Torah. Why? Because Torah is compared to water. Just like water descends from above, Torah, divine wisdom, comes from Hashem above. And just like water quenches the thirst of an arid body, Torah quenches the thirst of an arid soul. So remember the story of Rabbi Akiva? He was also about Teshuvah. He was he came from a family of converts to Judaism. And yet, he saw the water penetrating that hole in the rock. And he said to himself, even if I'm rock-headed, just like the water penetrates a hole into the rock, the Torah, divine wisdom, can penetrate my mind and can change my life. So we too have to realize that in our own lives as well. And like Yosef, who did not give up, who didn't despair when he was being mistreated. The two tests of life, the test of poverty, of failure, of challenges, and the test of prosperity and success, both could tell a lot about our life. Don't despair when you're down there, and don't get arrogant and pompous even when you're up there. Exactly. So let me just read to you what it says here. The Torah, the truth is, the Zohar tells us that the Torah predates its revelation at Sinai, right? Because our sages tell us that the patriarchs and matriarchs, Abraham, Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Rachel, Leah, Bila, Zilpah, that they observed, they studied and practiced the Torah, and that it was taught by Abraham's ancestors, by Shem, who was the son of Noach, and Shem's great-grandson, Aver. So according to our sages, the Torah exists, even the tefillin, the Medrash says that there was some form of tefillin they wore back then. Okay? And not only that, the Zohar, which we'll get to touch on the Zohar later. The Zohar says that the Torah precedes even creation itself. We know that when you want to build something, you need plans, you need blueprints. The Zohar says, what was the blueprint, the plan for the creation of the world? Istakel baraisa, the Zohar says that God looked into the Torah, who bara alma, with that he created the world. And if you come tomorrow to the shir with Miriam, you will learn the very letters, the building blocks of creation. Because according to the videos I have of the creation of the world, there were no bulldozers and there were no cranes. God didn't destroy to build. With what did God build? Abracadabra, magic. You know what abracadabra means? Abra, I will create. Kadabra, as I speak. Ba'asara ma'amaras nivra ha'olam, God created the world with speech, with the fact of speech. In fact, God says, let there be light. There's light. Yeah. Easy. It's your share. You must give the commercial for it.
No, not so much here.
Yeah.
I want to take it back further, back to the Zohar. The first verse of the Rashid says,
Wow. I never heard that one before.
Really?
Yep. First time hearing that. I haven't been coming to your share. That's exactly it. So, yeah, you knew that because you come to the shir. Well, if you come to the shir, you learn. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Good. I'm glad everybody's learning here. This is what it's about. By the way, you know what one old man told me recently? He says, Rabbi, you know why I come to your shir? I'm cramming for the finals.
You know who first said that?
Who?
The Magi Rebbe.
Oh, interesting. Beautiful. Wow. Now, the Talmud tells us, Talmud relates that when Moshe Rabbeinu ascended Mount Sinai to receive the Torah from God, it says that the supernal angels, the angels above, they protested. I remember giving you this share once before. I think I gave it to you Shavuos times, if you recall. Go back to about 9 months ago. You'll remember this share. And it says, I quoted the Talmud, the Gemara, Masechet Shabbos, Daf, Pei Tes Samad Aleph, page 89a. It says that the Malachim, the angels, turned to God and they said, Chem de Genuza, this esoteric treasure which was hidden with you for 974 generations before the world was created, whatever that means. But that's what it says in the Gemara. You want to give it to people of flesh and blood? To Homo sapiens? Really? And in the words of the Medrash says an architect who builds a palace doesn't do so on their own. They have scrolls and notebooks which they consult on how to place the rooms, how to build it correctly, where to put the doors, where to put the fixtures. In today's day and age, we get to see a lot of building in Santon, although it's come to a halt lately because most of these white elephants are staying empty. Some of them are built and they're just empty buildings all over the place since COVID, yeah? In the States, I think, and many other parts of the world, buildings have gone back to usage. Santon has an oversaturation of empty buildings. Anyways, we watch the way they build today with the lines, the electrical wires and everything going through. It's incredible to watch that. So the Medrash, Bereshis Rabbah says that God looked into the Torah and created the world, as it says in the Zohar. And of course, there's a lot of discussion about the nature of this pre-creation and pre-Mount Sinai revelation of Torah. Was it the same words The same verses that we know today that we read from the Torah that are 79,976 letters? Was it the same one? Or was it maybe the ideas, the precepts in a more abstract and more spiritual form? What was it? One of the great commentaries known as the Radbaz. Radbaz is an acronym of his name, Rabbi David Ibn Zimra, who lived in the 15th century. He points out that the angels obviously had no use for a Torah that instructs someone to remember the experience of being liberated from Egypt. Were the angels slaves in Egypt, right? The angels have no use for a Torah says you should work for 6 days and rest on the 7th. Do you think angels get exhausted from any labor? It's not the way angels are programmed. What about that commandment? Honor your father and mother. Angels have parents that they have to honor their father and mother, or not to murder, not to steal, not to commit adultery. That was one of them. When Moses came down from the mountain, they got good news and bad news. Good news is I got it down to 10. The bad news is adultery still in. But that's what Moshe said to the angels. You guys have temptations for adultery? Do you guys have the capacity to commit murder? Do you have any ability to steal? That's not the way you guys are programmed. And based on that, it would imply that the angels wanted to retain the Torah in a more spiritual sense, because you cannot say that these commandments are in any way, shape, or form relevant to the angels. They don't have parents. They weren't slaves. None of these things. Okay? So the words of the Ibn Ezra are as black fire written on white fire. Huh? Yeah.
Told you that currently science is saying with the terms dark matter and dark black fire.
This is 600 years ago. Yeah. But this, it's a discussion that's obviously beyond, I don't plan to go into the details of this, but the reason I'm pointing this out is because we talked about this is how our digressions work. How many words in the Torah? 79,976. And I digress to tell you this whole, I don't even know how I get through this. But that's me. I'm sorry. Live with it. Some people get, that's just a simple question. Why can't you answer it? Anyway, that's the way I work. But the point is that we look at the whole development, and we're going to look at it throughout how Torah is developed from Mount Sinai all the way to today. Yeah.
What is the purpose of Torah for us? But you just told us that Torah, Hashem opened the Torah and read the Torah to create the world.
Right.
The Torah is a blueprint for the world. Architecture is a blueprint to build a building.
Yeah.
But does the architect build the building?
Oh, very good.
The builders build the building, and we are the builders that take the architect's plan and build the building.
Absolutely. That's what we're partners of God in creation. We help continue the development of this entire world. We build the world. When we say in the morning, we gather the two front fringes of our tzitzis in the very beginning of prayers, we recite Baruch Sha'amar V'haya Olam. Blessed is the one who spoke and the world came to be. We have to realize while we're praising God in that prayer, which is very true, we're also talking about ourselves. Blessed is the person who watches and thinks what we say, the words we speak, because with that we create our world, just like God created the world through speech. And when we speak not pleasantly, right? What kind of world do we create? A world of toxicity, of negativity. And when we speak pleasantly to each other, we are building a beautiful, magnificent world. That is our task. So just like God created the physical space of the world through speech, we create the environment we want with the words we speak.
We are created in the image of God. What does that mean? It means that we have to the same ability as God in order to create. We can use the Torah to create because we are made to be God.
Yeah. So go back to the last course we did, My God. some reason, some people didn't like it. Some people weren't coming because they said, no, it was too esoteric or too heavy. I could tell you, I'm not an esoteric person. So I assure you that anything I teach is not going to be too esoteric because I don't go for that. Even when I study mysticism, I try to make it very practical and relevant because if I don't relate to it, I can't teach it. So I just want to be clear about that. All right, we need to conclude with one point for today, which is what I'm going to put up on the screen in a moment, because we're still defining the word Torah, right? So far we said Torah is the scroll, and we talked about what's written in the scroll. But like I said, this scroll has less than 80,000 words in it. How many words in the average novel? An average, I don't know, long novel. How many words in, what's my daughter's favorite one? You guys have to know what my daughter sits, she's read it about 15 times already. Wish she would read the Torah that many times. She is now 12, but I think by the time she was 7, she read, no, Dumbledore. I never even read it once. Harry Potter. Okay, Harry Potter is probably a long novel. But what I'm saying is,
I can tell you how many words, different words you need to know in order to be fluent in language. 20,000.
that's it.
A minimum 20,000.
20,000. So I'm wondering how many words I know in English. I can give you a few adjectives for each one I know.
Well, those count as words.
So this Torah that we're looking at here, just basic. You see, I think I'm realizing what we said yesterday, that we're not going to get through this too quickly as I intended. But it's fine. I won't go too deep, but the point is, if you're getting bored of it or something, just tell me and then I'll move on. But I'm just realizing a simple thing, a Torah scroll today, we're already talking about it for over an hour. Over an hour. But as long as you're not walking out bored and you're coming up with some messages and lessons, then I'm happy. Oh, okay, good. So this Torah, how long did it take for Moshe to write it? 40 years in the desert, right? That whole period. Well, no, he started in the desert because he gave us the Torah from Har Sinai, which was only 49 days, 50 days into their journey. So that was Hashem gave it to him, yeah, because that's all transcribed by God's word. Now, here's the thing. As you can see on the screen, there's not just one definition of Torah. Chances are there's dozens of definitions of the word Torah, which we'll get to. But for today, 2 points of the word Torah that we want to say. Point number 1 of Torah is the written Torah. Point number 2 of Torah. But what else do we mean when we say Torah? Oftentimes we talk about all of Jewish teachings. And that's where I negate somebody like a wonderful person, even though he's Jewish, Albert Einstein, and I respect him and revere him. What I'm saying is that included in the word Torah? Now, I'd argue and say, since you need science to understand Torah, you're never going to understand Torah if you don't understand E equals MC squared, which I still don't understand, and theories of relativity. Oh, there we go. Then that's part of Torah too. So now, hold on, that's vast. But I just told you it's only 80,000 words in the Torah. So are there 80,000 words? Or are there millions of words? Because honestly speaking, Torah is endless, and there's so many words that describe Torah. So now we talk about, hold on. The word Torah, and we're not going to go through all its meanings today, is the written word, which is the Torah scroll itself. But if you want to take it further, Torah maybe is not just the 5 books of Moses, but all of Tanakh, the scriptures. And if you want to go further than that, we could say, whoa, this whole vast Jewish literary, I don't know what you want to call it, compiled throughout history. So now Torah gets much further, hundreds of thousands of books. And today it's not only books, today it's the whole internet is full with things, right? And they're composed by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of authors in so many different places throughout history. Yeah. So now you could buy a hard drive in Israel. They didn't put it on the net for some reason, called Otzer HaChachma. Okay, it's called Otzer HaChachma. It's a hard drive. And on this hard drive, you can, it's portable. So you plug it into your computer, I guess because it probably has so much in it that a computer can't handle it. You plug it into your computer, and you have access to over 120,000 works. And that's a fraction of how many works of Torah have been. And they've been working on this for 18 years. What they do is they take books and they scan them. And I'm assuming that very good scanning technology. Today, by the way, you can do it with your phone, you can scan things. You know, when I do a document, I used to go upstairs to our copy machine. Okay, obviously it's still easier to do that because you can put 100 pages and scan them through. But the copy machine is only a few years old and already has scratches on its camera. So every document I put in through the upstairs scanner comes back with scratches on it. Or I take my phone, I go on top of the document, I scan. Take a photo, but it fixes it up. It has, right? So here you go on this little flash drive, this little external hard drive that you plug into your computer, and it has hundreds of thousands, millions of pages, but over 120,000 books that they managed to scan in. Books that they scan in. Over 120,000. And that's probably a fraction of the vast body of literature that comprises the Torah. Again, while I'm not disagreeing with Miriam saying Einstein being part of Torah, it's not even included. We're not even talking about literary works that are, so to say, outside of the spiritual realm. Holy books in Hebrew, 120,000. Okay. I don't need conversion. We're on the same page. Don't worry. Okay, so ladies and gents, there's a lot more to talk about, but I will conclude it here for today. We've already gone a little bit over time, but come back tomorrow for Miriam's share where you'll learn about the letter Gimel and its illumination and hallucination. You know what I'm saying? And please God, on Monday, we'll continue this discussion. And we'll talk about how can both of these definitions of Torah, this one, and yet more, be part of the same Torah. And we will get into the meaning of the word Torah. And we'll talk about how to relate it to ourselves. And I promise you, I will make sure it's not a boring discussion. We'll keep it interactive. I'm open to this. I hope that Clive will join us here in person. And he can ask as many whys as he wants. And each of you will come with your questions and your thoughts and I will try to pepper it with stories and more slides and videos. And we will talk so much more about understanding what Torah is from a bird's eye overview. And that's what we'll do. Yeah.
How many times in just the Torah does the word Ine?
I don't know, but I think a lot.
Well, I listened to
Behold.
I listened to Cuba
Yeah.
from the Bay.
Yep.
And he said in the shul that every time you see the word Ine, you must be hyper aware because it's a redundant word, not necessary. And
To say behold each time.
the presence of Ine is a clue to you that you must look deeper. There is a hidden, deeper meaning in that category.
Very interesting. Huh?
And that's what it sounds.
Absolutely. Fully agree. Ladies and gents, whether you're watching us on Facebook, on Zoom, on YouTube, or here with our august, illustrious, beautiful in-person audience, please come back tomorrow, come back next week. There's lunch served now. I need to just ask anyone who wants to be part of the new art therapy series, up to 8 people. If you haven't done it in the last term, let me know. I would like to make a list now of who wants to be part of the art classes on a Monday afternoon. Let me know, please. And if you are not here in person but want to be part of the art, you can let me know as well, but you'll have to come in person for that because the art series is not on Zoom. If you want to be part of the art with Kim Abadi, you could do in the future. Right now, we want to get another group of people who haven't done it yet. Okay.